Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. So since you are all new here, since this is my first video, I just wanted to introduce you guys, welcome you. And yeah, so this channel will be covering all topics related to The Walking Dead show, comics, TV universe, games, everything. In case you're not familiar with The Walking Dead, which I don't know why you wouldn't be and still watch this video, The Walking Dead is the story of former Sheriff Rick Grimes as he finds himself in a zombie apocalypse, and he has to come to terms with the fact that the world he knew is gone now. The center of the conflict in the story is how Rick's group of survivors will face the challenges that this new world throws at them, how they adapt and become stronger people than they were before the apocalypse. Their morals are also challenged quite a bit. There's several villains in this show, remarkable villains, some of my favorite in all of media, who push Rick and his whole group to their moral limits of what's okay and what's not okay in this new world where law and order, where those are all foreign concepts. But for today, I wanted to start with Robert Kirkman's comic book series that started it all. I want to go through some of the most underrated stuff that the show left out and see if what you guys know and don't know. If you've watched the show, you're familiar with Terminus. It was a fake sanctuary where survivors were told that they could find refuge, but it turned out to actually be a trap set by cannibals to get food. In the show, they have a backstory where they used to be a thriving community that would help out others genuinely out of kindness, but they were taken advantage of by raiders, so they turned to a darker way of life that was more cold and pragmatic. Well, at least until they encountered Rick Grimes and Carol Peltier. But for you show-only fans out there, this might actually surprise you how different the comic version of this arc actually is. It started with Andrea and Dale's adopted son, Ben, killing his brother Billy, in a scene very similar to when Lizzie kills Mika in the show. And quite funnily, in the moment when the group is dealing with this, Father Gabriel just wanders up and introduces himself, like, kinda out of nowhere. But in a not so funny turn of events, the one who actually puts down Ben is none other than Carl Grimes, who it's worth noting is way younger in the comic than the show. This leaves Dale, who lasted way longer than his show counterpart, distraught with grief to go wander off into the woods by himself. This would turn out to be a dire mistake, as he was knocked out and captured by the hunters. The next day, Andrea would be the first to realize that Dale wasn't there in the morning. She was the first to sound the alarm and tell the group that something was wrong. Her husband was missing. With Father Gabriel allowing the group to use his church as a base camp during their search, the group would go on high alert. The group's anxiety would only worsen when Andrea said she heard someone stalking her in the woods the night before. Later that night, Dale would wake up dazed and confused in the hunter's camp, horrified to realize that his leg was amputated and the hunters were eating some kind of meat. One of the most shocking reveals in the whole comic, we see that the hunters had amputated and cooked Dale's leg and were eating it in front of him. They claim that they amputate and keep the victim alive because they're not big on refrigeration, apparently. However, unbeknownst to the hunters, they made a mistake. They didn't realize that Dale had been bitten earlier that night. Neither did the rest of the group. Yep, that's right, show watchers. In the comic, Dale is the... This repulses and scares the shit out of the hunters as they're afraid that they're gonna turn. One of them even says they're gonna cut out their tongue just in case. But the leader of the group says that it's in their stomachs, so cutting out their tongue wouldn't do anything. Realizing his lack of value, they knock him out and return him to Father Gabriel's church as a message to the rest of the group. While this was going on, Andrea noticed that the group was being watched by some figures from the woods. Thinking it was Dale at first, she realized it was multiple people, so she went to go warn them. It doesn't take a genius to realize that these people might have something to do with Dale's disappearance. They immediately become suspicious of Father Gabriel. They interrogate him and he cracks, but it's not what they thought. He didn't collude with the hunters. He locked his congregation outside during the early days, just like in the show. With the realization that they have no idea who these people outside are, they go on high alert. They're told not to go outside by Rick, and they are told that they need to be vigilant. But little do the hunters know that Rick has the advantage. The hunters think they're scared, little wimpy survivors who won't do anything. But little do they know, they picked a fight with Rick motherfucking Grimes. They hear a commotion outside and come uncheck to see that Dale had been returned, now with a missing leg, a message from the hunters. He'd be rushed inside, but in the process, Glenn would be shot in the leg by the hunters. They thought this would be a way to keep the group too scared to do anything, maybe even make them scatter and be easy to pick off one by one, but instead, they strengthened Rick's resolve that they had to be dealt with that night. Realizing this would probably be their last night together, Dale and Andrea, well, they had a heart-to-heart, and Dale reveals that he saw himself as a burden, but Andrea says that he was perfect. Dale also uses this time to make things right with Rick, having the honesty and, well, the humility to admit that he was wrong about the way he was treating Rick during his leadership, because he could never do the things Rick could. And more crucially, he gives Rick the information he needs to track down the hunters. He describes what the camp looked like, and along with Gabriel's knowledge of the area, they pinpoint the location of the hunters' camp. The hunters are amused to see what appears to be Rick Grimes just approaching unarmed and alone into their camp, where they get way too comfortable. They admit that they killed and ate their own children because they were such shitty hunters that they couldn't feed themselves and were starving.
Starving? You. By practically, you mean not really.
However, this would prove to be a massive mistake on the hunter's part, as Rick reveals that he did not come alone when they threatened to kill him. He reveals that his people are in the woods the whole time, and they shoot one of the fingers off the hunters. The hunters, who are now terrified, immediately surrender. They drop their weapons and surrender them to Abraham, while Rick, well, he coldly refuses their pleas for help. Because, did they show Dale that? No. So Rick forces them to their knees, and throughout the night he coldly tortures them to death with his group, getting sweet, sweet revenge for Dale. Now for you show-only fans, that might have been quite the departure. Not only did Rick Grimes only have one hand, there was no Daryl. Yeah, did you notice that? Daryl wasn't in the comics. He was an original character for the show. Also, you might notice that story arcs in the comics are way shorter and more contained than in the show, as the show kind of has a tendency to spread things out. On top of this, characters like Carol, who played a huge role in this arc in the show, was actually dead for a while before this happened, dying in the prison. She was basically a completely different character. But by far the biggest overall difference is the comic is way darker than the show was ever allowed to be. And coming from you show watchers who might see this as a really dark and disturbing show, the comics are way worse when it comes to gore and when it comes to dark subject matter. So if you ever do want to read the comics, I am warning you in advance about that. but overall, I think the comics and the show are both wonderful stories in their own right. And I just thought it would be nice to show you guys an arc that was completely different in the comics from the show, and just show you show-only fans some of the value to reading the comics. And for those who did read the comics, I want you to go down into the comments and maybe tell me what I missed, or give some show-only fans some other interesting differences. And with that, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy all the content that I have in the future.